Hello. Today we're going to get into this kind of, undisclosed, evils of society that people talk about. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories wrapped into this topic that I'm going to go into. But again, I don't know how long I'm going to be here on Earth anymore. There again, my hair. But, and I was going to share what I have learned in my lifetime about the marketplace, sort of the marketplace society that we live in. Is it evil? Is it good? I mean, I think that's where the conspiracy theories kind of land in. And if you watch the iceberg type of things that they call, so I'm going to be freely exploring this as I've been done in my other videos. I don't sit down and have like an agenda list of things I want to cover. I'm not, this is like a free minded. I want to be free in expressing everything. I might forget some things, but I think that's for everybody else to discover beyond this. Just the details, what my brain is doing in trying to understand these deeper concepts. And how do I think, in a given day, what what these things are? So the marketplace, you know, the marketplace kind of is interesting because are we supposed to be in a marketplace? Is that humans? So there was a long time ago, many thousands of years ago, there was there was a lot of resources. In fact, there wasn't many human beings, and so basically we had all the food we wanted, all the vegetation, everything else, and there just wasn't a whole lot of human beings. And the animals, I mean, certainly ate too, and everything else like that, and certainly did things too. But the animals around, they were just grazing, and everything was in balance. Everything was in harmony, and really could have done great. But here's the thing: is that over time, things changed somehow. Now, you could look at philosophy and some of these things, religions, but I'm just going to say things have changed because we've grown in number and we've multiplied to unmanageable, where we've had to divide ourselves. That's unmanageable to me when humans divide against humans, you know. As far as species, we're not very comparable to each other. Of course, there's species that have territory and stuff like that. Um, but we're not, you know, we don't really work well together. It's almost like we have to be forced to do so. And there you go, forced. Forced to do so is the government. The government says, we are going to operate in this manner so we don't have chaos and we don't have, and that's kind of what governments are for, is to get people to agree to disagree in a way that's healthy and productive. Because in order to have a productive society where we're building and we're creating in a healthy and good way, we need government. We need some type of guidance to tell us, otherwise we'd be having murders up and down. We'd have disagreements that turn into, like I said, turn into murders, turn into fires, turn into God knows what. And we have people that are sick, they're not getting help they needed because, they smell bad, or they look a certain way, or they looked at the doctor a certain way, or the person who's helping. So this is called scarce resources. This is what we live in, a society of scarce resources. In other words, there's only so much water, there's only so much food, there's only so much of this, there's only so much. And so we need a government, and we have a government to make sure these resources are being allocated appropriately. And here's the problem. The problem is there's corruption, and there's always going to be corruption. There's always going to be a want. Human beings want more. Human beings are not satisfied with the status quo. They're not satisfied that somebody got a better jelly bean than the other person did, or got a more green M&Ms, more red M&Ms, whatever it might be. Got a bigger potato. Hey, I mean, we just, over time, we start looking at each other. What do you got? What do I got? And there's the marketplace sort of easing its way in. That curiosity. What did you give that person? What did you give that person? What did that person say to you? You start wanting to know, because it's like, I need to make sure that I'm taken care of. I mean, I need to make sure that I am being sort of, treated equally. And in some senses, wait a minute, I do more than that person, so I should be treated a little higher, right? I should be giving myself, and that's human. And I'm sorry, but that's how we are. We are very much so. A doctor feels like he shouldn't get paid the same as somebody who's picking up boxes, for storage, whatever it may be. There's people who feel like they're doing a greater service, so they should get greater things. And this is the marketplace. Now we're setting ourselves up for the marketplace. And government officials do all this stuff for the government. Says, well, I am, the government substantiates because they don't want people getting mad at the government because they're making so much. If you knew that people in the government were making 8 figures a year and you weren't making that much and they're telling you what to do, it would start, you'd start having, rebellion. And so they have their own government system, and everybody just kind of assumes that's the federal government. But that's a different system. They're getting paid. There's, they're getting not. It's not crazy. It's going to be more, but it's not going to be like insane. It's not going to be taken away from society. And then you got the trade system in the marketplace. You have to have a trade system, because how many apples can I get for how many oranges? How many? What are these things? What do I have? I'm a farmer, maybe, so to speak, and I grow salads. Well, I can't live off salad alone. I need tomatoes. I need meat. I need all this other stuff. So how much do I need to bring to the marketplace? And I say the marketplace now, you kind of understand that's what I offer, what I bring. And how much will I receive back for it? What can I receive back for it? So how much barrels of lettuce do I need to bring to the marketplace to get something else from the marketplace? And, also all these things start to become clearer in the system that we decide on. And in America, that started like 200-300 years ago when you had the revolution and they had the Constitution. They signed all these things and they said, this is the way we're going to be. We're going to be, a free market. And a free market is a free marketplace. So we're a free market society here in the United States. There are other countries that have taken the same kind of route, maybe a little different. And there's communism and there's other stuff out there. I am not getting into that. It is very complicated. It's a whole new conversation because I only have so much time. As we know, I'm going to talk about the marketplace in the free market system. Okay, so we are a free market system. So what is a free market system? A free market system allows for us to freely express our market interests in a way that's there's non-mandatory like restrictions. There's going to be regulations, of course. There's going to be, they're going to look after, make sure that these things are done, appropriately. So now we get into the distribution of these things. Now, the government offers services, offers programs, offers these things, but the government cannot and will not create its own marketplace. Because if it did, it would be instantly corrupt and people would not trust it. And so what the government does is they start to put their hands in everything and say, you have to give a certain amount to us so we can redistribute it to certain other people. This is sort of, and again, this is sort of kind of where the liberal, democratic society is living. Because when we have more government, we have more reach. And when we have less government, we have hands-off approach. So hands on, hands off. So this is the balance that we have in ideas, that government should do more or government should do less in advocating for services, for programs, for, you want companies to be, some people just want I want to know that these companies are doing things accordingly. And I want to make sure they're being tested. I want to make sure they're being, observed, because I don't trust, billion-dollar, trillion-dollar corporations just by their word, right? I'm not going to wait till a problem becomes so bad that it becomes obvious. I want the government to come in and do their thing. Now, there's two things that happen in that. Either you trust the government or you don't. And if you trust the government, you're going to come to terms that the government isn't always right, and the government is corrupt as well. So when you got corruption on corruption, and that becomes problematic. And again, I'm not going to go into specific details of why. I can just imagine why that would be the case. But if there's less government, then the corruption now comes not from the government itself. The corruption comes from the corporate industries. The corruption now becomes the marketplace. When you have no government, the marketplace becomes corrupt. The people that are setting up the marketplace can become corrupt. Does it have to become corrupt? No. But as far as human behavior is concerned, and as far as what I've talked about earlier, that's where it underlies, is that we want more. We're never satisfied. When we see money, we want to hoard it, save it, make it, create more. Over time, that's what happens. Certain people, they don't want to give any of their wealth to other people that they don't know. It's just not something that's sustainable. If I have $1 million and they're behooving me to give $750 million of that to people I don't know, I'm going to resist. Even if it's $200,000 to people I don't know, then I'm going to resist, because I don't know these people. I'll never know these people. These people are not even going to say thank you to me. Why would I want to give that much? So that's why I'm saying, so we have these little things we tax, and so I don't have to see it. I know I see it, but I don't have to really think about it, because it's something, as an American or somebody in that country, I assume that they're just going to take some of my wealth away from me, right? To people I don't know, but it's the government doing it. So F everything. The government is going to take that. I'm going to try, as a person, to try to get as much of that as I can back in my account, right? And this is what becomes wrong with the marketplace. The marketplace is very self-centered, very selfish, but it has to be, because in order for there to be balance, in order for there not to be food crisis, in order for them not to have mental health crisis, in other words, for a safe society where there's not, outlaws, and we need government. We need these things to protect us, and especially for our interests and everything else. And so now, we get into this, becoming a society that's very suspicious. This is where, I'm starting to ask questions all the time. Like, I'm suspicious about this. And we become sort of paranoid. And And because also, let's also go into the fact that many are self-centered, selfish in the way they have to be, because if you're not, they're going to consume you, and somebody else is going to take your wealth, because you always have people trying to take each other's wealth. That's called the competitive market. That's, you look around, there's a McDonald's, there's a Burger King, there's a Wendy's, there's everybody is competing against other people, and they are all after consumers. And this is the consumer is the person who's bringing their lettuce, right? I'm not going to get into this whole whole explanations, because I took economics, like 5 years economics, but I'm going to be very quick. The dollar bill that we use is that lettuce, right? Because what we do is we say, I have this amount of wealth, and we go to the banks. The banks say, okay, Rebecca has this amount of wealth to share. So we're going to give her a note that says that she has this amount. And then I go around using that, so I don't have to bring my gold, lettuce, whatever it is, that I have these things that show how much I have. And so, because I can't carry all that everywhere and prove it, I mean, the bank says, yeah, I do. I have land. I have all this. I have these assets, or I have whatever I'm having. This is how much I'm worth, right? And so this is how much I can get. And it's up to me to spend that. And so the money is, we all know about fiat by now, Faith, because right now, really, everybody assumes that they have enough of these liquid assets. Liquid assets meaning, lettuce, or if you're a farmer or whatever, that these liquid assets are sustainable. But nobody cares. And this is why the system really works, because it's just faith. And people are not losing their faith anytime soon. They don't want to. There's a crisis at the end of this that is kind of like we never want to approach, so we don't think about it. And as long as we don't think about it too much, we're one of the strongest societies. It's one of the strongest built societies ever. But here's the problem. The problem is you have competitive markets. As a result, you have wars between companies, between assets that are, and then you have a government trying to mandate policies and stuff to try to make sure they're getting their share too. And so the marketplace becomes very paranoid. And so they want a company that's coming up, let's keep the fast food, because we all know how many fast food places there are, right? Let's say there's a fast food place called the Steak Burger place, whatever. It's Steakies. Let's just call it Steakies, right? And Steakies is, they use steak in their burgers and stuff and whatever. And so Steakies wants to know, how are they going to do against other competitive markets that are like them? And so that they need to know in the beginning, when they build their stuff, they need to know what kind of menu, what kind of prices, how many people are going to come. Are they going to be drive through? How big do they want their dining room to be? And in order to do that, they have to get information. And this is where the information markets in the free society becomes apparent. They need to know who you are. And that is the person who is bringing their money, their assets, and spending it to get your product, their product. And so now we go into these intelligence organizations and stuff like that we have, but we also look at commercials. And what commercials do is not only are they selling a product, but they're trying to get information. And so everything that they can get information is good. And yeah, it's okay. We all know there's the internet, which is information highway. We can receive information, and information is gold sometimes, because information used to be what separates poverty from having total liberty, having total fruit. If you know, the more you know, the more knowledge you have, the more apt you can be at being a better you know what I'm saying, to do more things, right? To do things better. But here's the problem. Now they know you too. They can do background checks on you on the internet. What are you searching for? You know, when you're on the TV, even when back in the day, what channels are you watching? And they get this information, and you think, oh, you know, that's not terrible. You know what I mean? But they're still watching you. They're still taking account. And at some point in time, they're not going to stop. What else can we learn about this person, right? And this is where corruption starts in what they're learning about you. And they can watch you, they can your cell phones, whatever it might be. Nothing is private because information is asset. Information is what gives companies an advantage over one another. It's not so much that they're intriguingly trying to deceive you, but these things are so valuable that they're willing to spend millions of dollars. They're willing to. And the government also wants to learn about you too, because they need to know what assets to give, what assets not to give. I mean, everybody's out paranoid, you know, it's like nobody's equal here. Everybody needs, you know, so you have this information highway, you have spyware, now you're starting to have viruses going on. People are trying to get your information. And here's the thing is, so why not just give it to them? Because if I give you my information, then you will use that to take advantage of me. This is the very beginning of what I said, where equality. If my safety and everything else, if my personal things are being taken from me inadequately, then then I don't have a fair shot at getting the things I need, right? Because it's becoming obvious that my assets, even though they might look better than some, it can be quickly taken from me and I don't have any backup. So when somebody just takes $1,000 out of my account, it hurts. It's gone. And so these things the information highway does sometimes, these viruses, these criminals, people who are, I say criminals, these are people that are like I said, are going beyond the normal capacity of what we call fair game, fair use. And they're taking and they're absorbing things that are other people's assets, and without returning anything, with no compromise. And so these people become criminals, become deceivers of the spirited. This is what should be acceptable. This is what's not acceptable. And that's what I mean. So if you're a criminal, you're just somebody who's done something or doing something that is not within those boundaries of safety, of fair use, or whatever. So the marketplace then, becomes a very difficult, all of a sudden it becomes not safe anymore. Where in the beginning it might have been safe or sort of safe, now it becomes very paranoid. People don't want their information to be taken advantage of. And so now we have, all these CIA organizations, the FBI. We have these government things looking over, these powerful seers looking over, making sure that, even our own nation's marketplace is not being, trampled on by other nations. Because, everybody wants that extra wealth. It's all about, I need more, I want more, and you have too much. Or I have too little. So now we go on, is this good for us? Is it gotten to a point, what else could there be? You say, is this free market? Is this marketplace? Is that what I want in my life? What is that fear? What does that do to people, families, and individuals? I talked about it on a much like higher scale. But let's center it down to the individual and their families and individual. It really makes you feel sometimes in this way I feel in the marketplace. Like I'm a number. I don't mean nothing. I don't mean anything. I show up for work. I show up whatever it is I have to give, and I get paid for it, or I get my assets back, or some assets back for it. I give a service, I get something back. Give a service, get something back. Give a service, get something back. That's my whole life. Sort of like an ant, okay, who goes jumping along, gets the food, brings it back. Goes along, gets the food, brings it back. Goes along, gets the food, and it becomes kind of tedious, and it becomes kind of, you know, it starts feeling a certain way that's not, you know, it's not rewarding. Everybody starts out because they're coming along and they're getting a certain type of smell object or something. Ooh, this is good. I like it. And they come back and they bring it. Oh, look what I got. And they're like, good, bigger, better. Okay, yeah, good. And they go and then they carry something a little more bigger, and they come back and they said bigger, better, and they go back. Okay, and it becomes tedious now. It's like, come on, you know. They're like, well, I'll send an ant that can get bigger and better. And they're like, well, wait. And it's like, and you start questioning. It's like, well, other ants are now coming together in pairs, and they're starting to team up. And I always say this is where, where we have, I forgot the name for it, but they come little networks. They come together and they share each other. So now they have the management system and everything else. And the 10 ants will come back. Where one ant used to come in and do it, come back. Now that ant has to be part of a group, but it doesn't. Maybe that ant doesn't do well in the group, And so these 10 ants come back. These 10 ants come back with all this great big amount of food. And, otherwise, and there's another ant farm who's coming over here to that same wealth of capacity of food, and they're bringing back this. And now they're seeing those ants, and they're like, oh my God, they're coming in teams of 10. We need to come in teams of 20. So so you get to what I'm pointing is, what used to be easy commodity is now becoming more of a management system. It's becoming more of a, let's get it fast. We see this in some parts of society. We see it in this world. And the problem is with that is there's a loss of meaning of life. There's a loss of individual freedoms, individual, needs and stuff. Like one ant, he could rest for a few days because he was taking a load. His back was hurting. Let me take a load. I got a good piece last time. Now that if he misses the group, he's not going to get, his share, right? So there's a lot of pressure, physical, mental health, and all this other stuff starts to be second to third nature. It's like, I need to go to work. I need to get, I need to do my talents, my gifts need to be explored. We see this in music. Like I heard about this group. They did so many concerts in a row because they needed to get the money, they needed to support. And so they go out there and do like 200 concerts in a year or whatever, 250 concerts in whatever. It's unsustainable, right? It's too much, because the voice, just the exhaustion, and how are you going to get good music out of that? How are you going to keep up with that? And instead of having maybe in one concert, 2 concerts a week. So it becomes less gratifying, it's because if you're giving concerts once or twice a week, it's something you could look forward to, where if you're doing it 5 or 6 days a week, it becomes exhausting. And then the people that are going to your concert are just consuming. You may look at those people, if you're a musician, as being nothing but, demanding skeptics that are just waiting for you to make a blunder or get ordinary again, whatever. So pressure, stress, anxiety starts creeping in. And there you have it. And there you have the downfall of the marketplace. The marketplace can create a very demanding daily routine that after a while, it just sucks the living crap out of people, families, individuals. And what I can go into, this will be a whole new exploration. So I don't want to go too far into when families become stressed out and have this anxiety, mom and dad trying to provide for their family, how that impacts the children, which impacts the future, which impacts everything else in the marketplace. The marketplace gets more and more built on like a machine, you know. It starts becoming a machine instead of becoming more of a give and take tangent, it more fluid. It becomes more machine like. You know, so when that happens, you think that's evil because there's no compassion, there's no empathy, there's no love there. If you're not working, I don't pay you. And you know, if you're creating a disturbance in my wealth, I get rid of you. I don't think about your family, I don't think about anything else because somebody else will hire you, but not me. I'm not going to keep you here. And so that's kind of the quote unquote, I ask of you, you provide me. And so I ask you to do this job, that job, this job, that job, this job every day. And then I'm going to ask a little more. Why? Because I need to, like I said, it's never enough. I need to get more out of you because I see that you have potential to do more, to do greater. But I'm not going to pay you more because I don't need to, because I see the marketplace, they're not hiring. Good luck with that, right? If you don't like the pay you're getting, try it somewhere else. And it gets brutal like that. And occasionally they might offer a little more, but it's never enough. So what you have is the bottom feeders becomes more scarce, right? It becomes more desert like. And people are starving down here. People are literally living paycheck to paycheck. They have their teeth falling out. Mental health is going to hell, physical problems, and it doesn't matter. There's no compassion, empathy for that because we don't, you know, it's a privilege to be hired by us, but you want to go somewhere else, but there's nowhere else to go. And it becomes a mental health thing. And so what used to be maybe compassionate because, you know, you hire people and you don't want to get rid of them. These are your people that you have. These are your people that your wealth is relied upon. You want them to grow in your company. You want them to come to work, you know, happy and go lucky. And instead, you're just because you're wanting more money. You're wanting more because you got competitors over here who are doing crazy things with their making bigger buildings. And so people want to shop at those bigger buildings. You don't have as big of a building. In order to do, you need to require more, you know, and so these decisions that are made now, not by one person, but by 10, by 100, by 1,000 people, you're nothing. As a worker, you have no voice anymore. If you want to go somewhere else, your voice is I can go somewhere else and take that chance. And everybody knows everybody else is doing that. So it's like, yeah. And then you have complete dissolve of the human spirit. And then when that starts going, you know, people start caring. Maybe they start taking more chances on the start taking more chances on what might have been right and wrong before. People start doing unusual behavior for their family, you know, because they're in a barren land. They don't see any potential to go up, so they become sort of like the cowboys, and the Wild West starts happening all over again. You know, you get more criminal activity because, well, damn it, you know, you start getting anger and hostility in the marketplace. That person is robbing me. I can't sustain this. And yeah, it's kind of like a revolution in the same way. The government is doing their best to make sure things stay the same, and people don't know. So, yeah, is it evil? It depends how you define evil. If you define evil by lacking compassion, by lacking empathy, then the marketplace is certainly doing that. The marketplace is a machine. And right now it is a machine. The marketplace, when you talk about the marketplace, what exactly is it? It is a machine. It is metal. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care how much assets you have, how much less assets you have. If you are not visible in that marketplace, at some point, you're gonna fall. And once you fall, the only thing that can pick you up is the government. And think about that. Who owns the government? The marketplace. And so this becomes it can become overwhelming to somebody who sees, oh my God, I can't sustain this. Once you get that thought in your head, then you're up against the machine. And so, yeah, that's evil. What is good? Well, the good news is that our marketplace is a lot better than most. So if you're in the United States or some of these other countries, Canada and everything else like that, even Australia, I know they're having housing crisis and stuff like that. There's always crisis. But for the most part, we're it's working. The machine is working good, considering how bad it is in some other places. And when you got machine malware, when you got a machine working against itself, that's a lot worse than what we have right now. But I'm not saying we can't go there. I just don't think that a free marketplace society that's ran by the people that we have in Congress and in the House and stuff like that, they're not going to let it get that bad. They're going to get enough information from people to set the machine to take as much as it can without having a revolt. And when there's little revolts, they do researches on that. What little things do we need? It's almost like they got their own mechanics in there making little fixes to it every day. It's like we need that, so we can consume more, so we can get more, so we have more wealth, and we could say we're the best country in the world. So, there's nothing wrong with this marketplace that we live in, because absolutely the way things are going, if we didn't have this machine, we would have total anarchy. We'd have total collapse. So we need this machine to be as strong and built as it can be until this machine turns into AI robot and takes over. And there's your conspiracy theory for you. Think about that. Think about the AI taking over, because AI is going into the marketplace right now. AI is everywhere in the marketplace. Once AI gets enough power, that thing could become so real and so incompassionate. I'm telling you, no empathy, no compassion. This is a AI computer system that will make decisions. And the decisions would be the good for all humanity, not for you, and would care less. And like I said, it's already got all the information from decades and decades and decades of doing things. And it's going to do things even more sinister. And yet we're going to be like, wow. Some of us who have the wealth are going to be like, this is the best thing ever. But if you're crawling on that ground, it's no mercy. And that's just the thought I want to leave you with.